Hey Gather fam! Welcome back to part 2 of the conversation on maternal mental health. Thanks for joining us as we talk about emotional changes when you become a mom, whether it's a new mom or a repeat mother. When we talk about maternal mental health and how you can get counseling and therapy for those things. And then we also touch on ways that you can just feel good as a mama. So stay tuned. We have amazing information to give you. Bye.
Which brings us to our next topic, which are the emotional changes. What emotional changes, because we kind of talked about it a little bit, but what emotional changes did you experience that you did not think that you would? And for some examples could be some guilt, maybe like what we were talking about before, but there also could be feelings of depression and anxiety that we weren't expecting, but it can also be some remorse, maybe a little bit of grief, maybe a little bit of anger about something that you weren't necessarily expecting to feel. But we want to talk about that because, again, we want to make sure that we're talking about this journey in a very candid way and taking away some of those generalizations and myths that bog moms down if they don't have a circle like this to talk about it in. So whomever wants to go first to talk about those emotions that you may not have been expecting, but you inevitably felt.
Yeah, I just didn't expect to be angry with my doctor. I felt like they could have did more for me not to have a C-section because I felt like it was preventable. I thought that really the reason why I got a C-section was because they gave me so much medication and they were rushing the birthing process. So when I got home, that was just the first thing I had to deal with. Like, why am I so mad with the doctors when essentially they were helping me? Because of course the baby was in fetal distress and that was the best option at that time. But when I got home, I just couldn't see it that way. Like, I felt like they could have given more. I was like, oh, it's because I'm Black. Like, I was just really struggling with that, like that anger towards my doctors.
One thing that I really realize now in retrospect that I dealt with when I was pregnant was a lot of anxiety. It took me some time to process post-pregnancy, and I recommend journaling because it helped me to see and feel what I was feeling, that I'm just a person who will go through something and not feel what I'm feeling because I'm just trying to make it and go to the next thing and just handle it, like whatever it is, like, okay, I got this, and just not really pay attention sometimes to what I'm actually going through. But looking back, I'm like, dang, I was really anxious. Like, my heart rate was up. It was hard to sleep at night. But I think, of course, COVID had a lot to do with it because I was always worried about getting COVID and protecting myself and my family and my child. And then even everything that was happening, with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and locally, what that meant for Black people and for me to be bringing a Black boy into the world. Like, there were a lot of things subconsciously that I think I was working through that I didn't realize how that was affecting my body until those things would show up. So I dealt with anxiety and I didn't know it until afterwards, a lot of that. And I also think one thing that I am processing and dealing with now, and I have found myself in little ways kind of grieving and celebrating who I am, but who I am no longer. Like, I'm a new person now, I'm a mother, and there's a transformation that's happening, but there's a little bit of like, oh man, did I live up to my potential before my son came? Was I doing everything that I was supposed to be doing? And who am I now? And what does that look like? And how do I show up in the world, not just for me, but for him? And so that's something I'm processing now, where there's a little bit of grief, but there's still a lot of, I guess, excitement because it's uncharted territory, and I'm gonna find that out moving forward.
Okay. So in regards to anxiety, like you were talking about, Cece, during pregnancy, I can also agree that I had really bad anxiety during pregnancy from the very start, and how Brittany and Corlicia were mentioning some just human statistics that 1 out of 4 people deal with mental health issues just alone, and then to become pregnant on top of that. So for me, I've had issues and challenges with anxiety, and I've also had a history of panic disorder. So when I found out I was pregnant, just a couple months after our second year anniversary. That was in March, just a few months after the pandemic had gotten very serious. We like canceled our anniversary trip. Things changed for me at work. Like just a lot of transition and changes were happening in the time. And then I became pregnant, and I wanted to become pregnant, but then it was like, oh shoot. Like it actually, like it's real, you know, it's not just a thought or an idea or a plan anymore. So then I felt bad because I was like, oh no, like it's happening and I don't feel overjoyed. And then I started getting anxious about not feeling overjoyed. And then I was like, oh no, Janelle, this is not the time to be anxious. This is not the time to have a panic attack. You haven't had a panic attack in over a year. Do not have a panic attack pregnant. So I'm like talking to myself and I said, you know what? I'm not even going to do this. I'm going to immediately contact my counselor. And so the first trimester of my pregnancy, I went to therapy. And I think that was the best thing I could have done, because I didn't have the energy to get myself out of that. And I knew that I didn't have the energy to get myself out of that. I was nauseous. It was the first trimester. I was working a really weird shift. I was transitioning to telework. Like I didn't have it. I knew I didn't have it. So I needed a little help to kind of process that. And I would say the emotional change of my anxiety being at such a high so quickly was really challenging for me. And I immediately had to attack it because I couldn't, bear if anything else happened and I'm pregnant and I'm supposed to be being a good mom. So go to therapy, girl. Don't have no panic attack. That baby don't need that. Like I was just, it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah, I think anxiety is definitely one that I felt too during pregnancy and after pregnancy. During pregnancy, because I am considered advanced maternal age, being 37, there was, they said there's a lot more risk for complications and different things that could happen to the baby. So it was just constant worry that he was not healthy or he was not okay. That was just constantly going through my mind. Then when he was born, it's just like this little baby that is 100% dependent on you. And it's like, oh my gosh, don't screw this up, Lidan. Like when he's sleeping, is he okay? Is he breathing? Like, let me pop over here and just check real quick and make sure he's okay.
Yes.
Had to like break that habit because I didn't want to be that person that was just like constantly thinking something is going to be wrong or go wrong, because that's not who I am naturally, but I was getting caught up in that type of process of thinking. So I just had to do a lot of self-talk and a lot of like reining myself in when I noticed that I was doing it, because it could very easily have gotten out of hand for me, because it's it's understandable anxiety. You're literally in charge of a human life. So yeah, that was my feeling part.
Absolutely. That's so real. I think talking about all of the different emotions, and I think Corlicia, you maybe when we were just talking like off camera, but we were talking about the fact that pre-existing mental health struggles are only exacerbated when you are experiencing a major transition. So not only were you guys transitioning into motherhood, being first-time mothers, but we were transitioning into a world that is experiencing a pandemic, and you're doing them simultaneously. So sometimes, knowing all of us to a degree, we are go-getters. We just make it happen. We don't stop to really think about what needs to be done. We just do it. And then maybe in retrospect later, we're like, oh man, that was a heavy lift, but we just made it. Okay? So when that is your natural just inclination to do things, and then you're adding on such a major but beautiful transition, and you're already dealing with your own stuff as a person, it's only going to be exacerbated now because you are a person that is now a mom, and like Lidan said, in charge of a whole human. So mom, we want to encourage you to remember that your mental health was a thing before you became a mom, and whatever you did beforehand is something that you will probably need to continue to do. Like Janelle said, that she had a therapist on hand. So she said, friend, I gotta tap you back in because I'm gonna need you more so now than ever. So if you were already doing things, then that should be amplified now during this time. And if there was something that had not been addressed when it comes to mental health, it's probably a great time to start looking into addressing it, because it's only going to like we said, become exacerbated during this time because life transitions just automatically make things happen. And this is a beautiful moment and journey, but it is very significant and comes with a lot of changes. I think, Corey, you were going to start talking about some coping suggestions to help moms who may feel things that our panel of experts, if these experts can feel it, then I know that any other mom can too. So what are some coping strategies that you want to share?
Absolutely. I think you guys have already touched on quite a few. I know, Felicia, you talked about journaling, and I think that it is very important to kind of get thoughts out of your head so they can live somewhere else and kind of put them on a page or in a journal or even in your phone. I think that that's great. Janelle, you talked about going back to therapy. LaDanne, you talked about just kind of like positive, like self-talk. You guys have added some really great coping mechanisms. And so I know that, Brittany, you're going to talk a little bit later about like online forums that you can join, having a sense of community, journaling, doing things that you enjoy. I know you guys are all, in addition to being new moms, you're all working moms. And so I'm sure that it's hard to kind of balance like doing work and still enjoying yourself and like finding time to go out with your friends and do some of the things that you enjoy. And I think kind of getting some semblance of things that you used to enjoy before you fell into mommydom is important in keeping some balance and equilibrium in your life. And so those are just a few. I mean, you've named quite a few, but do you guys have any other coping mechanisms that you kind of utilize or that were given to you that other new parents out there can kind of maybe lean into or try if they having trouble figuring out like how to just get through?
I have one that I relied on heavily during pregnancy, and I'm sure there are other apps out there, but I use one called Expectful, and it's a meditation app, and they have different meditations that you can do like to help go to sleep. Ones that I would play when I would wake up in the middle of the night, because that would happen a lot. I'd get up and go to the bathroom, and then I couldn't go back to sleep. And then I'm thinking about the world and everything that's on my shoulders. And it would just lead me and guide me in a meditative state in a very safe way to just stillness and calmness. And there were even meditations about anxiousness with meeting your baby and wanting to have a safe delivery. And so that was great. And I would suggest that or any other app that can help you with meditating, positive thinking, and getting rest.
But I was just going to suggest joining a group on Facebook. They have a lot of different groups. When I first got pregnant, my friend added me to this group called the Motivated Moms Club. And honestly, it was just refreshing just to see other moms that were expecting moms who maybe have like 5 or 6 kids, and everybody there just sharing their experiences and checking in with each other, showing their pictures of their children. So I think using Facebook to connect with people who are like you, but you don't necessarily know, is a good way to cope, especially with pregnancy and the postpartum experience.
That's a great suggestion.
Yeah, it's similar to what both the ladies mentioned. It's the what to expect when you're expecting app. You can join a group of moms that are expecting in the same month as you. So that really helped me through pregnancy, just to see like people would post on there, women would post and say, I'm experiencing this, anybody else, blah, blah, blah. Some moms, first time moms, some who have multiple children also who can give some kind of feedback and guidance. And then it carries you through to after delivery. So when you have the baby, so now all the moms are on there like, my baby is 3 months and he won't sleep and blah, blah. So it's nice to have that place of everybody's kind of in their little group of the same age baby. So having that support has been really great.
Yeah, similar to LaDanne and Takesha, I also had groups that I was in with moms who were going through the same thing at the same time, and that was really encouraging. But one of the things that was helpful for me was documenting. I know, we've talked about journaling and things like that, but it's a reminder that you got through different stages, like the ones that felt super long or like they wouldn't end, or seeing pictures of your belly grow and then prayerfully your belly shrinking. If that's your goal. If it's not your goal, it's fine. But just documenting those things, because it's so easy to forget where you came from when a baby's there, you're running around or you're really tired, but it helps you to cope, to be re-energized and to see your constant growth, your constant development, your constant ability to move the hell on when you thought you could not. So just documenting pregnancy, after pregnancy, I think that's a really nice way to cope, and then go back and look at it. Like, just happy you got through it, you know?
Absolutely. So, Corlisha, I think you talked about the journaling. We definitely want to talk about a little bit of building of community. And then we also just want to encourage whatever you do, we just want you to do it with intention. So prioritizing something that contributes to your own self-care. We imagine that in the world of becoming a mom, your attention is on your baby, as it should be. I mean, we have beautiful and handsome new lives into the world. I mean, who wouldn't want to soak up all of their sweetness? We also want to remind you that you can't pour from an empty cup. So we want to encourage you to do something with intention as often as possible, so that you can refill your cup, so that you can continue to pour into that beautiful baby the love that they deserve. So if you have only a few minutes, downloading one of the apps, doing a short meditation. If you have longer than a few minutes, maybe going for a walk. It's okay also to delegate to your loved ones, because we are all boss women. I know this. And you guys, you probably don't need a whole bunch of help, but you deserve help, even if you don't think that you need it. So it's okay to say, hey, I want to take a quick walk. Can you I'm gonna tap you in, and can you sit here with the baby while I go and have some mommy time? If you have a little bit longer, maybe take yourself out and run to your favorite store and just mosey up and down the aisles with your mask on. We want to make sure we're keeping everybody safe, but doing things in a safe way. But looking at the amount of time that you reasonably and feasibly have, but doing something. We just don't want self-care to get lost in the shuffle. So if it's just a hot shower today, but that's all that you can muster, do that, because when you feel fresh and clean, then you have a renewed attitude. We just want to encourage self-care. So the journaling, the apps, the support groups for certain. And then we want to encourage you to have a little bit of insight as to what's maybe contributing to those feelings that you are struggling with. So some of the common contributors to some of these mental health struggles are just lack of sleep, which we know comes with being a new mom. But if you're aware of that, then you can focus on that particular matter as much as you can. Maybe it's your eating pattern. That's another one. So if you're not eating, or if you're breastfeeding and the baby is getting every piece of nutrient that you're putting into your body, then being more intentional when it comes to that. Being aware of your hormones and those hormonal changes, and talking to your doctor about different ways that you can address that. Then the uncertainty of motherhood, we hear, is another contributor to some of these mental health struggles. So if that's the case, then what the ladies have discussed as far as these support groups, I think can really help you there. And then also financial burdens, because nobody's really talked about the fact that a new baby coming into the world can tax your pockets a little bit, because babies are small, but they come with like a big bill. So it's a hospital bill, it's food, it's diapers, it's clothes, and you get a lot for a shower. But that's one time. Once you run through those diapers and wipes, the baby doesn't stop using the bathroom because the wipes and diaper stash is gone. So we also don't consider the fact that financial burdens also can add to one's anxiety or just unease. And so if that's one of your roots, then doing something intentional to address it, or at least being aware of that, so that you can incorporate things to help to alleviate that part of it. So just being aware of what the contributing factors are, and then doing something intentional to address that piece of it. And the last part before we wrap up, we wanted to talk about building your community. So you guys have already talked about the Facebook groups, and that seems to be very, very popular and helpful. And I am a big advocate of apps, because I just feel like we are attached to our phone at all times. So apps are easily accessible. Most of them have some free element, even if at some point they want you to buy a piece of it, but there's something that you can use. So I think that meditation apps and the milestone marker apps that you guys were talking about are great. But I also wanted to mention, in some of my research I found it, but there are podcasts. I don't know how you guys feel about podcasts, but I think that the idea of a podcast is really cool for busy moms, because you can just kind of play it in the background. So you could be pumping, you could be washing clothes or cleaning up, and still have that playing in the background. And there were so many that I found just going. So I have an iPhone, and there's like a podcast app, and it's this blue icon that just says podcast. And so I put in new mom, and it was like a list of different podcasts, and they had some of them had really good ratings, and some of them not as many. But I would just encourage looking at the ones with the great reviews, and some of the ones that I wrote down just so I can remember. So one of them was called That New Mom Life. And so it looks like will really be helpful for first-time moms. It says newbies, so new moms and new babies. And then there was another one that was Mom Empowered. And I saw all of those had really good reviews. But that was just another suggestion that we wanted to offer. So it's something that's mindless. It's not going to take a lot of your time, but it's something, again, to build your community. We wanted to build community here by bringing some new moms together so that you don't feel so isolated, so that you don't feel alone, so that you can share some of those mommy tips and tricks that you've learned to make your journeys easier and more enjoyable. But for those who don't have this, well, you have us through YouTube now, but they may not have this ongoing, you can also reach out to some of the other suggestions that we've offered here. Anything else, ladies?
Well, I just want to say that this has been the highlight of my day. I've carved out time to make sure, my husband and the kids were kind of away, and I appreciate speaking, like you said, Brittany, with community. And community right now is friends and family, but it's also like just new moms. Like that's a new badge, a new group that we are now a part of, and they can help in a different special kind of way. So I've really enjoyed talking to you ladies. I hope you guys never stop talking about the motherhood experience, because baby, highly important. But yeah, that's all. Thank you guys so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you guys for having us.
I was going to say, of course, we appreciate you guys for kind of sharing your story, sharing your insight. I think kind of the information that you gave today is going to help so many people, whether they're new moms or even people who are thinking about conceiving, because if mental health is something that you've been struggling with, like you kind of know now that it could get further complicated as you go through this process. And so I think that in whatever stage you are, whether you're contemplating having a baby or you're currently pregnant or you just had a baby, I think that this information is going to help so many people. And we're really grateful to have you guys. And so grateful to have you, and grateful to all of who will watch this video. And so we want to definitely remind everybody to please like and share and comment and subscribe if you have not, and turn on those notification bells if you have not, so you never miss an upload.
That's right. If that's all we got, ladies, I'm gonna say good night. You guys have a good night.
Good night.
Bye.